Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. We're easing through this season of cross training. We're easing through this season of trainer riding and the holiday season, however the season presents itself to you.
Okay, you're easing through the season. I am
Hustling.
You're
hustling.
Very stressed. We actually alluded to this in last week's intro, but someone was very anti-checklist as far as getting things done for the holidays, ahead of us traveling. And someone has been dropping the ball hugely on finishing all of the
I like to let
these
things emerge.
Oh my God. Okay. If we like blank out and then suddenly he's gone, it's
so the Molly Herford podcast.
The Molly Herford podcast. Anyway, this actually is the PSA to A, relax, everything's gonna be fine. That one's for me. And B, I really do stand by the list making and the organizing and all of that stuff for this really stressful time of year for a lot of us. There's just a ton going on, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And Peter actually made fun of me because he looked at the blog. He's like, "You've been writing a lot about organizing and cleaning on the blog lately."
Some great posts. There's some about Roombas, like these robot vacuums, and organizing just generally.
Yeah, I mean, it seems silly, but the last couple of weeks we've had all these articles go up, and I'm just going to make my point here before we get into today's actual question. The Roomba has saved us so much time by just like having that automatically vacuuming every day, because our carpets otherwise would be a nightmare. They're already kind of a nightmare if we're being honest, but they'd be way worse without the Roomba. And that has saved us so much time that we get to spend training instead of hoovering. So I do think like
hoovering. Yeah.
Hoovering, that's the word.
Vacuuming.
Yeah,
like manually vacuuming.
Yeah.
Someone reached out on Instagram, I think, and I was saying, I was pretty skeptical of them. Like, I think the early ones were a little sort of crummy.
Oh, yeah. No,
and
I
probably
went in college and it was terrible.
Probably worked better in different houses, depending on how many transitions you have from like carpet to hardwood to stairs. And if you have a lot of stairs, it gets a little hectic, but they're pretty smart now. Ours is pretty good. And again,
I think it's heat seeking. Like it follows us around like a second dog.
So I don't know, but it is like a nice to have. I don't know if it's a have to have. Like, we have a decent vacuum, which is also a good thing to have. Just having a nice vacuum is nice.
I never thought I'd be the adult who was so excited to get a Dyson for Christmas, but here we are.
Right.
I was thrilled. But the whole point of that is just, usually, if it saves you 15 minutes a day, that's a couple hours a week that you could be spending doing literally anything else, whether that's meal prepping, like healthier stuff, or, actually getting in the mobility that you're supposed to be doing, or just actually having another couple hours on the trainer. And the same applies to, whether you're talking about organizing your gear or just being a little bit more sorted out with like, whether it's ordering food, ordering your groceries online, or like divvying up the house cleaning amongst you and your spouse and your kids. Having more of that stuff just streamlined actually saves so much time, which can then be used for training. And I wrote about this the other week. I'm such a big fan of, you have to have the charging station where, your lights and your watches and your Garmin's and all of that stuff goes when you get done with a ride. And the other week, after we ran, I tossed all my stuff in my bag to sort out later. Long story short, watch did not make it back on the charging station, did make it into the laundry bin, did not find it till later that night, but we ended up like 30 minutes late to leave for the next day's ride and run because I was looking for this watch because I didn't have it on the charging station.
The checklists were of no use.
Checklists were useless.
Anyhow, so we have ad here, but then we'll get into talking about trainer boredom.
Yes. But before we get into that, yes, talking about AG1. If you've been listening to the show for a while, we've been using AG1, formerly Athletic Greens, for a couple of years now. And honestly, still one of like the best decisions that I think we've made as far as like our health and our supplement routines
That's
go.
right. And this is more than just greens.
Yes, this is 75 vitamins, minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, adaptogens, and of course, still your greens. It's been iterated on. I think they're on either like 56th or 57th iteration from the original.
That's right. And a lot of people are getting into these adaptogens and these mushrooms and these things. So it's in this AG1 product.
Yes. And the bright side with that is it's really hard to find anything with adaptogens that are NSF for sport certified. Not that there aren't any others, but there aren't that many. So to have something that contains all of this stuff that actually is NSF certified for sport. And I was just talking to someone about this. Our friend Vivian had mentioned she ended up getting AG1 because she's, heard us talking about it. And I've talked to her about it a bunch. I had another friend message me asking about it. I realize I'm saying the Instagram cliche. A lot of people have been asking. No, a friend was asking, like, what do I like about it that separates it from other greens powders out there or other, these multi supplements that are coming out of the market?
Paste is what I would say.
Paste is a big one. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've had a lot of greens powders in my days, and this is the only one that I can like tolerate as, oh, this is actually a nice drink in the morning. But I was saying, like, even though, I'm not necessarily in a testing pool, I still do like take it very seriously, like only putting into my body like what I know is okay to put in that has been third-party tested, that doesn't have any crap in it. So the NSF certified for sport is actually like really important to me, even though I'm not necessarily peeing in a cup for USADA or whatever the Canadian version
peeing
is.
in a cup for yourself.
Or peeing in a cup, yeah. So anyway, I think that's super important. And yeah, the best part about for the holidays is if you subscribe using drinkag1.com/MollyH, you get 5 free travel packs plus a year's supply of immune supporting vitamin D, K, and K2. Yeah, 2 bonuses. Travel packs are so good for having around the holidays, especially traveling, hotels, parents' houses, etc.
A nice box too. Very nice presentation. So it would be like a nice like gift. You could almost just, forget about checklist, just order this and then put it, you could wrap it and away you go. Maybe they wrap it for you. Would they wrap it for you? I don't think they would.
I don't think they would. Also, I don't think we can get that for a 7-year-old. So I think you're going to have to still do some gift giving here. This is not getting you out of your holiday shopping.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, if you want to take ownership over your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/MollyH. Again, drinkag1.com/MollyH. Check it out.
Okay, so we'll get to this question here. So this is a series of questions. What we try and do with these Q&A episodes is take, themes that have been coming up with clients that I'm working with, whether it's coaching or consults or even in training plans. Sometimes you'll see, where are people getting stuck? What are the questions? And then we'll of course get questions, whether that's, on Instagram or something like that. So if you have a question, something's been bugging you, you're having a trouble, we'd love to hear about it because then we might cover it in an episode.
It's true.
But a lot of these things do come in seasons. And so like with coaching, and Molly, you would call this like an editorial calendar, you sort of know around December 1st, it gets like extra crummy in most parts of the world for, it could be rainy, snowy, whatever. And then people start having different problems. So the organization Molly was speaking about, but this one is sort of around the trainer boredom and trainer, I'm not ready for the trainer. We said there was another one that was like, I can't make it more than a few minutes on the trainer.
I've already burnt out.
I've already burnt out. So these are the people that started in July on the trainer to be more efficient or something. And now they can't do it anymore. And now that, now's the time to do it. So that sort of sucks. And then they have also, how do I pass the time on the trainer? And then what's that last one? I can't even read
it. I'm not riding as much as I was in the summer. Okay. So the big, is it okay that my volume is dropping on the trainer?
Yes. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not even a sentence, but it's not. So
okay. So let's maybe just start with like the overall, like the big one here that you put in all capital letters in our notes here is that I am not ready for the trainer/rollers. And I think where we can start is going back to a couple weeks ago. We talked about doing a strength focus. So, or, walking, obviously cross training is not a crime as per the t-shirt.
Yeah. Available in the shop, consumateathlete.com. Great gift.
Shop. Yeah. At any rate, I think the main point here is, so don't get on the trainer or rollers yet.
Well, and so that's a great point. So this is why we have again, I promoted it a little bit more this year. Maybe in the future, we'll do more of a contest around the no trainer till December. But that's sort of the idea, is to like artificially hold yourself back, because it's a long way till March, April, May when you don't need the trainer anymore. So that's holding back. But I wonder if there's a step one of, what are you preparing for and when is that happening? Because that sort of gives you a bit of a urgency and how hard you need to be charging.
Right. Yeah. So we are looking ahead at the 2024 schedule. Like if you do have a race in April, then like, yeah, okay, we probably do need to be, a little bit more on the trainer, on the rollers. But if your event isn't until June, I would say you can probably get away with even if you just cut it down to like one time a week on the bike, but you're doing cross training the other days. I think that can be a perfectly reasonable solution, especially just getting through the holidays. The other thing too is I think this is the time of year where everyone makes the mistake of thinking it's only a couple months on the trainer. We always forget that March, like, especially if you live in these northern climates, Midwest, up here in Ontario, up in Canada, anywhere really, even March sucks.
Well, and you could be in California or wherever, and like you're getting into like the rainy season and that sort of thing. It's colder. We all have, my clients in Manitoba, I always laugh because like they're outside riding and it's negative 20 Celsius out. And we're in Toronto and it's like 5 degrees over, so over freezing. Just like, I don't know if it's that bad out, but I get it, right? There's all these degrees of what's reasonable for where you live. So I think you want to reflect on how much you need to be charging right now. What phase of the season are you in when you're talking about this planning or periodization? As Molly said, if your race is June, you can sort of then backtrack. So that might be if you have Training Peaks Premium, you can just open up the annual plan, plug in your A race, your primary race, and then it'll do the Joe Friel calculation back. If you have the Joe Friel book, pull it off the shelf and like draw it out. I think it's a great exercise. If you have a calendar, like an old school calendar, like put the date on and circle it and then start counting back the number of months. And again, usually if you look at a very stereotypical textbook thing, it's usually about 3 or 4 months of base and then 2-3 months of sort of what you call build or specific preparation. So that's 6 to 7 to 8 months. And that's probably the case for a lot of situations. Now, if you're getting ready, we have our spring classics are April. So how many months is that? That's 4. And then December is 5. So that's probably a lot of people. There's probably a lot of people that have like an April, May, they want to be pretty ready. And this is a debate of like, are you going to be really ready or pretty ready? Is this an A or a B?
I mean, here's where we get into the even more philosophical debate of can you be really ready on the like from the trainer? But
right. Yeah. And probably a little bit. And again, in April, March, you would maybe try and get out and be specifics, but that's still, April, March, then you have February, January. So, what that means to me is that you're probably in, if you're going to really go with an earlier race in the year, then probably this November, December, this is what they might call base 1. So it's just very early general preparation period where it should be a mix of cross training, some strength training. It doesn't look a lot like the sport. It's not that specific. And the hours don't have to be that high. They're just gradually building. Or this might be the time for you to take time off. If it's like hard to motivate training and you haven't taken time off, then this might be a check-in on that as well. So there's a few ways to play it, right? And if you're someone who is healthy and has been consistent, even that periodization where I said, 8 months, 5 months, whatever, you can sort of take 2 and 3 and 4 weeks even, and it's not a big deal, right? You can get back.
Yeah.
So our first thing is looking at what are you preparing for? Because sometimes that even just that process, all that aside from, how hard do you need to be charging right now or what do you need to be focused on now? It also gives a bit of a why you're getting on the trainer.
That's actually what I was thinking is I think to me, what I would also be doing is, okay, if you look at it and you're like, all right, this is time to start doing some base. I do need to be on the bike. I would actually put somewhere near the bike, whether it's taped to your top tube or whatever, like I would put your race date, your race goal, like somewhere visible that you can see it. So that way you are reminded whenever you get on the trainer, like, like, I know you're not ready for the trainer rollers. They suck. It sucks riding inside.
Yep.
But if you have that kind of visual reminder of like, okay, I'm doing this because I know that my race is in, 4 months. Like I have, there's actually a free app, the Countdown app on iPhone, and it has a little widget. So on my like home screen of my phone, it's like 240 days till Leadville. So every day I'm getting the visual reminder of that is my countdown. So like, it might seem like it's far away, but those numbers keep coming down.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago. It was over
300.
Hey, you're almost counting in years, right? So I do, and so as for some people that will be motivating, that your Spring Classic, your Paris to Ancaster, your I'm trying to think of a US one, Barry Roubaix. These races are coming pretty quick, but that might not still scare you onto the trainer, because you might be the type of person who's like the crammer. You were in university and you would like
The all-nighters.
you're not a checklist person, and you're gonna take, it's you got 6 weeks, it'll be fine, right? And then you're like, it's the night before, oh my god, it's Christmas Eve and I'm shopping, right? So if you're that type of person, then we need to find something else. So then what I think is also useful is to think, this is sort of gets into that, the 2 weeks, the 2 months, the 2 years, where you might say, okay, I'm getting ready for cross-country ski, Nordic skiing, or I'm getting ready for that spring training camp. Maybe you're going away in January or February or March. And so you can't go to that camp with nothing. You have to, have some fitness going to a camp, or else it's going to be what we call it, a survival camp versus, are you thriving? Are you surviving? You don't,
not like a fun wilderness survival kind of way. Like, this is really hard.
That's how poorly it
I
goes.
guess, yeah.
If you get abandoned in the middle of some forest or something, or out in the mountains, it could be very much a survival, right? Like you get really cold and you're shaking at the top of a mountain on your little road bike.
Okay, you're right. Now it is a wilderness first aid camp.
So that's what you're preparing for then, right? Is, you don't have to simulate the camp before you go, but if you plan to do 20 hours in February, then you probably should be comfortable doing about 50% of that load before you go, right? Not this week, but if you're going in February, probably in January, you want to be thinking about 10-hour, plus minus weeks. This is very rough math, but you get the idea. You can't be at 0 and then, go, or else that's what it's going to be. It's going to be just this huge spike in your volume. And this is where we risk injury, illness, motivation issues, fatigue, that's what you'll see. People won't train March, April. So now hopefully that's scaring you a little bit, that, okay, I need to put in, 3 hours this week, 4 hours next week, 5 hours the next week. Now we're through December. That's the holidays. Take a rest week. January, we're going to go 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, take a rest week. February, you're going to do, maybe a 8, a 10, maybe a little bit of a rest. And then you're going to go on late February, whatever, you're going to go on this camp. Great.
All right. So your winter is set, done.
Yeah. So I think that's the idea. So I think trying to find out a little bit of something that's going to motivate you for a why is important. And that might just be the race goal for the season. It might also be something you're getting ready for. Again, ski season is one that a lot of clients, okay, I'm going to get out and walk with some poles. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to keep my trainer riding up a little bit. I'm going to do some strength training, some dryland training, so that I'm ready the second there's snow, that I'm going to have some sort of cardiovascular, fitness from keeping up my training, my movement. And then also getting my arms and my ankles and stuff used to it, so that the first time you go cross country skiing, you're not going to just be debilitated. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and actually the week this comes out, it's a good maybe mention to say, if you haven't been on the trainer this week and you're planning on doing the Rapha Festive 500, please, for the love of God, get on the trainer a couple times this week instead of starting on the trainer.
Right. Which again, could be something, we're getting quickly into that. As you say, this isn't going to be released in time to warn you, but that could be something that's, why you would want to do 5 or 6 or 7, 8 hours in the weeks ahead of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just making sure that everything's working, you're used to the trainer again, because honestly, I will say, like, I do think the first couple trainer rides are always a bit of a kick in the pants, because it's not as comfortable. You're figuring out like where the fans need to get set up. Right. You're figuring out like your position might actually need to be tweaked for
so
indoors.
Yeah, like, always. Yeah.
So it takes a while, because outside you have just so much more movement with the bike. You're standing more, you're coasting more. Just a lot is different.
A lot of my clients actually, like, it's a different bike.
Yeah.
Too. So there's, we have to, anytime there's a change in the bike fit, you want to be really cautious. So our first note here, we have a few more beyond the goal stuff, is, easing in. So I would say the first couple trainer rides, like, call the first one is like tech and equipment setup. Now with the tech, like, it's nothing will be loading, everything will be needing an upgrade, nothing will connect.
Like, honestly, do this on a rest day when you have a lot of time.
Yeah, or just call it a 90-minute workout and just like troubleshoot it and pedal a little bit and do some push-ups and while you're waiting for the update to go.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I just and then okay, we're good. So I think your idea about the rest day is probably good. If you can think ahead of that, then you're not going to be you're going to be able to get your training, and that's probably makes sense. But do that, and then I always say, like, it probably my first couple of trainer rides are probably 30 or 45 minutes if I'm lucky, because the time goes by so slow. But if you get 1 or 2 of those, then suddenly, okay, I can do 60. And then the time starts, I don't know what it is, but for some reason your brain just, and you probably experience this outside. I find, I can do my 90-minute rides all the time, but to do 3 hours is crushing. But if we go, to a camp, suddenly you're doing 5 and it goes by and it's fine.
Right.
So it's like time bends a little bit. So you just have to get your brain into that and get your routine, and it'll be fine.
You're going to be okay.
But I would say don't go in with the expectation that you're going to, hit that, just keep your plan going at like, if you've been doing 3-hour weekend rides, you're not going to just go into a 3-hour trainer ride.
Yeah.
And you probably shouldn't, right? Like it's a whole different load.
Yeah. And on that note, you do have like a 90-minute limit note. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's something I really find, like, I don't think there's a real need to do a lot more than 90 minutes, especially this time of year, unless you're for some reason getting ready. I have a few guys getting ready for like a fat bike race that are like, 80 miles, these type of things. So maybe there's a bit of reason to charge. You're getting ready for a camp. So if I was going to a camp, around Christmas, say we're 3 weeks out, and it's just crummy, and you want to keep that up, because I know at the camp I'm gonna have to pedal for 5 hours. I might push on the weekend and do something like a 3-hour trainer ride. But I would be very hesitant to push a lot of that. Now you say, well, I would like to do more. I have time. This is where I'm like, well, you probably have time to go outside and ride then more often. Invest in fat bikes or fenders, or, getting to a location that you can ride. There's lots of ways to solve this, or cross training is then the other thing that you're going to do. So I've been, we have a treadmill. So I put on a little weighted vest and I put it on the steepest mode and I hike, so that was a 90-minute workout the other day.
Well, and a lot of people like I do this all the time. Like you do part of it outside, part of it inside, and riding. Yes, this gets kind of annoying, but like you have a junky like 1995 mountain bike that we use for around town. Like you could do, 20, 30 minutes on that, then come in and do your 90 on the trainer.
100%. And that can be like in a snowsuit, maybe you put on your trainer outfit, but then, your shorts and chamois and so forth, and then like a snowsuit if it's really cold out, and then whatever protective equipment you'd like, and then you go out and you just ride around the neighborhood. And for some people that'll be technique based. Some people will get their heart rate up doing that too. Maybe there's some running and some dismounting. That's maybe beyond what some people will do.
But I think also then there is like the running, the cross country skiing, the hiking, even just brisk walking in this like snowy conditions. Do that and then get on the trainer, or do the trainer and then do that. I'm a big fan of the outdoor and then the indoor. I think you're actually usually the reverse.
It depends. Like there's arguments both ways. The problem is you get sweaty if you're indoors.
That's what I don't like. Yeah.
So then you have to decide how you're going to get quickly transitioned outdoors, and you have to get changed. It's sort of like the nice thing about going outdoors first is you actually now have this motivator to stay outdoors if you can avoid the trainer. So I always try and set up the trainer so I'm ready to quickly transition. But then usually if I do a good job of setting that up, I don't use it and I just stay outside. You get warm and it's actually okay once you're out there. So
I think that's actually the thing is, yeah. And granted, I run, so this is a little bit more like, this is easier because there's very few conditions where I can't run outside.
Sure.
But yeah, I find I'll have the treadmill ready to go, have my like Buffy the Vampire Slayer queued up, like already. And then, yeah, I'm just outside and I'm like, oh, okay, this sucks, but
sure, it's
not as bad as I thought.
And the walking after the workout, this is something we've talked about with a few different people, certainly Katie Bowman. We've talked, who else have we spoke about? This is like a very, I don't know if it's like Chris Johnson was on the physical therapist for runners and was talking about like running, or walking in the warm up and the cool down. And you could extend that so that you're getting a longer workout. For a lot of people, if you're not a pro tour cyclist with a huge cardiovascular system, just walking on flat ground briskly is going to get your heart rate up. And so I would say put on a heart rate strap and just go see. If you're a type of person that you're like, oh, wow, this is a zone 1, 2, like, you're getting towards 70% of max heart rate walking briskly. Well, there you go, right? You don't have to be on the trainer all the time. So do 45 minutes on the trainer and then right outside and start walking briskly. Now you can add load, you can add heavier boots, you could add a bit of a backpack cautiously. You could add a hill if you have it. We talked about the treadmill walking, I think is a great option. Ease into that too, because ankles and butt and stuff are going to have to adapt to walking on a slope. But I think for a lot of people, this is actually like a great general training stimulus that's going to give you the cardiovascular benefit, but keep you from staring, at a screen for indoors or at a wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the trainer. Yeah. So that's cross training, mixing it up. This is, I think, a very good thing. And that's how you extend past this 90-minute limit, because I think for most people that 90-minute stimulus, some of the days are going to be just, quote unquote, just endurance, just zone 1, 2. And then some days will be intervals, 2 times a week, do some intervals. You can mix that up, but I think, you know, the people say the trainer is efficient. So I think be efficient for 90 minutes. And I think that load is a good balance of risk reward, you know, the stimulus on the body, and then, you know, you recover quickly and you come back again and do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the other question is, how do I pass the time? And I like this one because it suggests that like riding on the trainer is boring.
Yeah, and
which
even if
is
you have
accurate.
Zwift, this is the reality, right? Like it's boring. Like if you have Zwift, I guarantee you, you have other stuff going on. Like you're gonna have music, you're talking to your friends on Discord, you have the movie turned up, the football game's on another screen. You know, the clients send me these multi-screen, very impressive. I get it. You know, you have desks and the work stuff's coming in, and so like it just is what it is. So I would say like keep it simple. Number one, like you can use Zwift if you like it, but it just keep it simple. And then I think the time you got to think about chunking it and having a purpose. So number one, I warm up with a ramp. So not a ramp test. This isn't maximal, but start super easy. So say you start at 50% of threshold or 50% of heart rate or 100 beats a minute, whatever you want to do. And then gradually increase in 3 to 10-minute blocks, however slow you want to do it. Chunk it up however you want. So 3 minutes at 100 beats, 3 minutes at 110 beats, 3 minutes at 120 beats, 3 minutes at 130 beats, 3 minutes at 140 beats. And then around there for most people, that's going to be, you know, getting towards the top of your endurance range. And then you have to decide what you're going to do from there. But that's going to kill, that could easily kill 30 minutes, right? And I think that's your objective, is to make that warm up chunking go about half an hour. Then maybe you have a workout. That could be just a steady zone 2 workout. That could be an interval workout, 3 by 10 minutes. There's 30 minutes plus. And then the cool down, again, figure out some way to, maybe you just ramp back down that ladder, 140, 130, 100, you know, something like that. But chunking it like that, I think is a really good, you know, strictly for biking, I think is a good way to do it.
No, I like that. And then I have kind of 2 thoughts here. One is what you always say is just like, I mean, at some point you're also going to be in a race where it's not fun. It's not pleasant.
You do a 200-mile gravel race. I'm sorry.
Like there's going to be some boring parts. Like,
yeah, sometimes it's funny, right? Because it's like, think about the things that you've done that are boring and hard. It's like, I'm sorry, this is a, you know, 1 hour. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to stare at a wall for an hour.
Like a completely climate controlled.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like you have all your beverages and you have
reasonable
your fan.
situation. So first of all, just lean into the discomfort and think about the fact that like this is going to help you, you know, when you are having a really tough moment in a race, just think, well, at least I'm not on the trainer. So I think lean into the discomfort. But 2, this is like one of those cheesy ones, but I actually do like it, is have the show that you don't watch any time other than on the trainer. For you, it's all of the Yellowstone spin-offs, etc., because I hate them.
Okay, sure.
Well, they're very violent.
I mean, I really like music, so I'll be honest, like I'll just listen to a whole album and be like, listening to this whole album, it's going to take 45 minutes.
But I do that, like having whether it's a cheesy show that no one else in your family likes, or just a show that you really, really enjoy, this is the only time you are watching it is on the trainer. I think that does help keep you on there. And that's what I do you know, for me, the morning yoga thing that I always talk about, like the 15 minutes of core and yoga, like I'm not like a wellness guru who can listen to just like sound bowl meditations while I do my planks and my yoga flow. Like I need to watch terrible TV.
Right.
So I'm literally just watching every Christmas movie on Netflix right now.
Sure.
While I do my 5 minutes of planks and whatnot.
So I think that's persisted. Like that's always been the way people would watch movies, and everyone has their own, you know, it could be Yellowstone or like action movies or documentaries. We used to do like, I remember we used to get together, which is another tip, is to like get a friends together for like a weekend and ride together indoors, actually together in the same spot. But we used to watch like what are those movies called? The Earth ones, like the nature videos.
Oh, like Planet Earth?
Yeah, which you're outdoors, you know, you're watching something. So it's sort of neat. But yeah, I always found them very boring because I really don't like them.
They're super boring. And it's like the most soothing voice in the world. How did you not just like fall off the trainer and sleep?
Yeah, but it was fun. It was sort of like, there you go. And those are long movies. I guess that was maybe the idea. And it's like visually stimulating, I guess. And sometimes there's like a lion hunting something.
Oh, there was that dinosaurs. Like, do you remember that series? That was like the dinosaurs documentary.
That would have been tough.
Those were also really good.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All of this said, the one thing is probably like, don't waste like 20 minutes before your workout scrolling. Like, figure this out again, rest day, or just like when you're sitting on your phone at night or something. Like, find the like playlist of movies or shows or whatever that you're going to watch. Cause I think you probably kill a lot of time when you get on the trainer, like trying to pick the like, ooh, let me see if like GCN RIP has anything like
Right.
out, or ooh, let's check Netflix and Prime and
And the
Apple.
bike race is a good way to do it too. I mean, especially, the cyclocross and mountain bike, it's a 1 to 1.5 hours type thing. You can
Mhm.
watch the intros to like extend it a little bit. I find that then like I am riding until this race is done. That can be a really good anchor as you're trying to find these things. But yeah, I think your point is good that, you don't want to frustrate yourself with the wrong thing or flipping a lot. That's why I prefer music, I think, is it's easier to switch to your mood.
Fair enough.
And I
Yeah.
always found like a movie, you just sort of like, this is boring and I don't like the vibe of this movie. It's sort of sad or something. So I always say I stare at a wall, which people find, different, but I listen to music, I guess, and look out the window is sort
Yeah.
of the way I do it. So there you go. So
Do you want to add in you have a note here, do strength. And I mean, obviously we've talked ad nauseum about strength in the last few weeks, but I think what you're saying is the mid-ride
So
strength.
two
Is that
pieces. There's a 90-minute limit on your ride. So if you're a person that thinks you have 3 hours, are you doing strength? So
period?
there's
Yeah.
just a question. Why can't you find time to do strength? Now that would probably be a separated session, ideally where you're maybe morning strength, PM trainer. But if the only way for you to get them done, the only way you can do them is by combining them. 1 hour strength and then you do your trainer workout. Don't stress on it. I would think in either case, the big thing is eating. You got to eat. You got fuel between, during, if you want that to be a good concurrent training. But I always say the first thing in this, like weights before cardio is like always the big question. And can you do the two at the same time or whatever? It's just, you got to eat. But like whatever gets them done, doing things is better than not in general. So that's where I sort of start. Like, would you bet on the person that just does their strength with their thing, or the guy who sits on the couch and does nothing because he's been like reading articles about
How we shouldn't do them
concurrent
together.
strength
Yeah.
training? He knows what concurrent means, but so there's that. So then the other, I don't know, do we save this kooky thing, outdoor weekends, outside? Yeah, I think so. Strength training, I think this time of year, we were talking about the time of year. So definitely in that early base, do some strength training, embrace that as some of your training time. Maybe a whole day or two of the week are just strength training. Maybe a little walk after the strength training is great. But there you go. Now you're not on the trainer as much. So sometimes the trainer burnout actually comes from this like 6-7 days on the trainer during the week. Whereas if you like do it, say you break up the week and it's maybe like Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, you're actually just doing strength training. You may be going to the gym. This is a nice break, right? And now it's not every day that you have to be on this indoor contraption.
I'm definitely a firm believer, like, and if it's a recovery ride, coffee spin, whatever you want to call it, that is not a trainer ride. Go for a walk.
Usually not. I mean, I think sometimes there's a reason for it, but yeah, you'd have to be careful, right? Because it's a lot of mental energy to get on that thing and sit. Whereas again, this is where the walking, certainly you could get your heart rate into like the recovery zone. And then you get into like arms and shoulders and hips moving through range of motion, being in nature. Like, what is the point of the workout, the recovery workout? Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. It's sort of just being a little choosy with when you get on the trainer. Some people for sure, that morning spin, the spin after the strength, like the recovery bit is fine. Something like coordination on rollers is good. Maybe that's another note I had there too is, don't forget about the indoor rollers. They've gotten less popular with all the smart trainers as of late.
Wonder if they're going to come out with smart rollers.
They do. Yeah. They do have them. Yep. Yeah. And they sync with Zwift and everything else. And they have all sorts of ones now with cages and that move like, so that you can like sprint and, fall off less frequently. People get really intimidated by them, but I do think it's a weird or an interesting thing is if you can't ride rollers, it's interesting. We've talked about getting used to rollers and you always see people talk about the doorway, to get used, but I find that terrifying to me for two reasons. A, the door frame is really close when you fall over. So I find that terrifying, but also it's not a great stimulus, a great like skill. We call this like a constraint. Like you don't want to encourage someone to take their hand off their handlebar to brace, like to stop their fall. That's how you break your arm and your collarbone is you fall with outstretched arm, right? That's what the physio would write, the cyclist fell with outstretched arm and they broke their wrist or their shoulder or their whatever. Well, you want to put your foot out, right? This is how you stop your fall. You put in general, or you tuck and roll, it goes very poor. But the idea is to encourage yourself to unclip or take your foot off to stop your fall. So what I would rather you do is actually start with flat shoes and work until you get comfortable getting going and stopped, getting going and stopped. And so once you get going, you stop and you do this 10 times. You can do it with both feet if you want. You can do race starts if you want. And then if you have a workout, fine. But I would start with a technique, especially if you're learning this, even just have your trainer beside, and then you do with flat shoes. It can just be on your clipless if you don't have flat pedals. And you want to get going and stopped 10 times with your flat shoes on. Don't use a door frame, because I think you're just going to end up breaking your arm down the road.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's not a guarantee, but so there you go. That's a side about getting on the rollers, but the rollers, I think, pass the time really, really nicely. And again, you could do one day on the rollers, one day on the trainer, maybe like your endurance day on the rollers. And because you're more engaged, you can't, you have to balance. I think this is much better than the indoor trainer from a, reality standpoint.
I find them very stressful, but
yeah,
I did learn how to use them. So
and you did use the flat shoe technique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had a video on that too. And so we built up, with a textbooks on the one side so that you had something a little higher platform.
I do need something high enough that I can put a foot down on, because
once you get decent, you can use the roller frame to get going. But yeah, the main thing is just use the flat pedals and just take the stupid clipless stuff out of it for the time that you're learning. This is, good advice when you're learning how to ride a bike or do skills outdoors. It's not an either or, it's both and. So just when you're practicing your rollers, even just in the warm up to get your rollers, to do these 10 reps. And I would love to see 10 reps of both sides ideally, but that might be pushing it.
Yeah, maybe that's like the 2.0.
So rollers, worth the investment for lots of different reasons, but I think they do help with the passing of time and engagement. And I think are richer training because you have to balance.
Yeah.
Right. We always say, like, when you think about a kid riding a bike, you got to look where you're going and you have to balance your bike. And then what does an indoor trainer do? None of those things.
Fair enough.
You can just look at your BlackBerry and and you don't have to balance it all.
I mean, if you have a BlackBerry, I'm like a little concerned, but sure.
You got it hooked up. You're watching Zwift on your BlackBerry.
You're definitely not on Zwift if you're on your BlackBerry.
Scrolling through.
Well, the other nice thing about rollers too is like they are the warm-up method of choice for mountain bike and cross. So if you do race either mountain bikes or cross, they are good for bringing to races for sure.
Okay. I criticized Zwift already, so we can skip that one. But
okay, look, to be fair, we like Zwift. We are not like anti-Zwift.
Okay.
It's just that like we take umbrage with the like elongated trainer season and like full focus on
some people use it really, really well. And I think for especially the youth seem to like the e-racing, like they seem to get it. So I think it's okay for some people. You just have to be careful. It's the same as Strava. I think the tool is good. It's a good tool.
Exactly. I'd maybe actually also my caveat to Zwift. I've written a bunch on it in the last couple of years, and like I like it. I like the people who are there. I like Zwift. If you're a competitive jerk like myself, be very careful on Zwift, because you will end up going much harder than you intend to on every ride if you are not very like specific with your plan and your effort. So just be aware of your mindset going into Zwift. And if someone passes you, it's okay.
So we have 2 points. So maybe the constructive thing I can put around Zwift is what I like is when folks go out and the people that use it well seem to, they almost have their device, their Garmin, their bike computer set up to their power meter. And so they have, the workout, they can press lap button, use the lap timer on their bike computer, but then they have a screen that they're maybe running one of these virtual software such as Zwift, where they're going to explore the environment of Zwift. So they might go up a mountain in Zwift, or they might, just ride the loop in Zwift. You insert the name of the place and the worlds or whatever they're doing. What's the like London is like a big one, right? So they're riding around this London loop. And they do their intervals as if they're riding outside at their home or in London, right? So to me, that's like the best use of the virtual environment is like you're actually still using your bike computer and your bike as if you were riding outdoors, but you're virtually riding in an environment. I like that better than the workouts in Zwift and the erg mode and whatever. It just seems like it's a more real way and would actually maybe be more stimulating if you had to actually like negotiate, like, oh no, there's a downhill coming. I'm in the middle of my interval. Well, that's sort of real and you got to pedal harder. But in the virtual world, it's actually not too bad because the hills aren't really that steep, or you can pedal a lot of times. So, and you can choose your route. Like I see people just ride up different mountains and stuff in these virtual worlds and they just do 3x10 using their bike computer. So I think that's the other thing you could try. Not that you wouldn't do it the other way, but just it's something that, go and explore these quote unquote virtual worlds and can you do a ride as if you were in the Swiss Alps or something, right?
just keep your blinders on if you are someone who is going to try to fight everyone. that
Probably
is-
settings for that, but yeah, know yourself, I guess. I'll have the like opposite. I'm like, I'm gonna slow down.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's how you
Screw
and I
you.
differ. Yep.
Okay, so the last thing then around strength, and this could be cardio machines. You have maybe, you know, you have a treadmill beside your bike in your little sufferfest zone. What do they call those? Suffer pain cave.
Pain cave. I was like, suffer cave? That's not right.
I
But
do think they call this high intensity functional training, which a lot of this is, you know, looks at CrossFit. So these multimodal things where you're doing, you know, push-ups and then you're on the Aerodyne bikes, you know, assault bikes.
An Aerodyne.
But I think as cyclists, this is something Steve Neal, you know, I really introduced me to as, you know, he was really into CrossFit at the time. This is my coach coming up and then mentor and coaching as well. Something that I really enjoy and still do for sure is, and at its simplest, you're riding your trainer, and we talked about chunking. So I said, you know, do your warm up, gradually ramp for 30 minutes, whatever. Then you have an endurance. Say you're going to ride, you're going to do a 2-hour ride, even though I said 90, you're going to do 2 hours. So now you have sort of 90 minutes you got to kill. And so what I would suggest is, you know, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, get off and do push-ups, get back on your bike.
And if you think about in like the real world, you would be coasting, you would be stopping at a stop sign.
Sure.
If you're mountain biking, you actually are using your upper body a lot of the time.
Right. And you're going to coast down a downhill. You're going to stop to figure out where you are in the forest, let your friend catch up, you know, but you're going to coast all the time. So especially for off-road, but I think even roadies, you know, you're going to coast back in the group to get on the back of the group, or coast, as you say, down the hill or around the corner. Like there's breaks in your pedaling. So while the trainer is more efficient because you never get a break, I think we're allowed to take breaks, and you could argue that this is more specific to outdoor riding. The idea with this is that you're actually activating more muscle mass. So especially if you're someone who only rides indoors, I think this is almost non-negotiable because you're not doing all these other ranges of motion by cross-country skiing or walking or running or whatever other sports we're doing. So I think you want to do this to call it cross training. So what this might look like, so that's a simple one. You got 90 minutes, every 10, 15 minutes, you jump off, you do 10 push-ups, start that way. But this could become more involved where, you know, you could do, you know, a little more intensity on your bike, or you could jump off and do more of like a cross, something that looks a bit like CrossFit. So like 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. That's Cindy for the CrossFit aficionados. So you could do 1 to 3 or whatever number of times around that little strength circuit, and then hop back on your bike for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then back off and do strength. And now you're generating all of this, we could say lactate or fatigue. You know, you're using a ton of muscle mass. Blood is just getting shunted all around your body. Your heart has to work so hard. And then you get back on your bike and you recover a little bit on the bike. So I think this is a really interesting way of looking at training, where you're challenging that heart a bit more than you would if you just sat on your bike. So we start getting this really interesting stimulus that could actually be quite beneficial for your cardiovascular system.
Love it.
Yeah. Now there's that benefit, but there's also just like it chunks up the workout. So you're just trying to figure out a game where you can like get in the time and not go, you know, not get super bored. So again, this could also, so that's an example. So that's like a more advanced strength circuit. The other one then is the strength circuit, or sorry, the cardio circuit of just, so say you hate strength, you don't like that, but you have a rower and you have a stepper and you have a treadmill. So then
I was just going to say rowers seem to be really popular this year. I feel like I know several people who've gotten ones.
Sure. And you know, probably my dream would be to have like a rower or like the ski erg, where your arms are more, your arms are more used. And again, now you're getting this blood moving around, and you could say it's sort of like cross-country skiing, where the VO2, the oxygen requirements because of all this muscle mass are higher. So then you could just sort of cycle your way through, but now you're chunking the workout. So maybe you do 10 minutes on each machine. This could be in a gym at work too. You know, and then that way you're not spending so much time on this like sort of crummy exercise bike or spin bike. It's only 10 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 10 minutes. And again, now if you do that circuit twice, you're getting close to a 90-minute workout, right? So it's not too bad. So that would be the other idea, is to just think cross training, but like you're inside. If you're an inside person, you live in the city, I get it. But what can you do that like looks like cross training is a little more general for this base phase?
To be clear, we are not suggesting that you go out and buy like 10 workout machines. This is more like if you have access to like a gym at your apartment building, if you happen to have a couple of these in the basement, because like, let's be honest, like if we're at my parents', there's a stepper, there was a manual treadmill, there's a rower, there are like stationary bikes. everything. But don't feel the need to go out and purchase a rower, a treadmill, a stepper, etc.
No, I think you'd do the strength stuff if you didn't have that stuff sitting beside you. But a lot of people do have one or two of these things randomly sitting in their, that's holding laundry, right? Is the joke. Yeah.
I mean, geez, we even have a tiny stepper. We have like one of the little one that doesn't have like arms or anything. It's more for like under desks.
Yeah, I mean, this could look like a set of stairs that you're, sort of stepping on the stairs too, I guess, right? Like you could do, again, there's a lot of different things you could do, but just thinking a little outside the box, remembering that, what you're doing on the indoor trainer is not very specific. Like your bike doesn't move, you don't really stand up very much. So, how can you make this, a more enjoyable experience, a little more varied?
Love it.
Cool.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
Indoor training.
All right. As always, rate, review, subscribe, follow. Let us know if you have any questions. We love to hear from you. Love to see the reviews. I feel like Peter might be leaning towards a second dachshund. So maybe if we make it to, let's say, 200 reviews, perhaps Molly gets a second dachshund.
Don't know about this. I don't know where this came from, but okay.
You're the one listening to the dog podcast.
It's the Christmas season. I guess you can wait for it.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.